comments from the council?
No, Mayor, I see it as a good compromise, this ordinance. I'd rather have merchants that stay here in business than empty storefronts versus maybe we'd have to have a property tax. I think, like Gary says, who are we to hold back merchants from trying to survive? I think it's a good compromise. No longer will we see A-frames on any of the arterial streets. As far as A-frames, I see on the average maybe 6 or 8 A-frames in the town center. Not that everybody's running out putting A-frames. Not everybody doesn't care about it. Only certain people, and if that's what makes the business survive, I say we go ahead with this ordinance on the second reading.
I'm torn on this one too. I don't like the concept of who are we to impose restrictions. That's not the reason to do this. Imposing restrictions is our job. I mean, it's our job to help the community, but it's also our job to impose appropriate restrictions to make sure that we're balancing the interests of business owners and the interest of why it is people come here anyhow. I mean, you could do signage that would be spectacularly good looking and drive both people that come to town to your store. So you have to be careful that in creating the local attraction of here's my business, you drive away all the people who might come to that business because it's ugly. I don't know the perfect answer to this. I had thought that when we were adding these moratoriums, that the last time we did this, the concept was this is the last one we're going to do. So business owners get talking with the town and figure out of the banner signs we offer and talk to your landlord and tell him, if you don't put a monument sign, I'm out of here, landlord. And I'm a real estate guy by background, and you tell a landlord, if you don't improve my signage, I'm out of here. You might get some attention. And I didn't think the concept was that we were ever going to make A-frames something that we could always have. I think we said there's better alternative to A-frames. Here we've offered you half a dozen of them, and I don't know that anyone has taken up the effort to do something other than an A-frame. I want to be sensitive to business owners, but I want to be sensitive to what makes the town special, because if you drive through some neighboring communities and you look at what the A-frame signs have done, it's not, I don't think it's helping them. Especially since the only A-frame you see is the one that's closest, and all day long they're sitting there moving the A-frames around to make sure. Now this ordinance would prevent that because it's 35 feet from your door. I get it.
I think it's a positive step in the right direction. And as the town administrator indicated, we can do what we may want to do down the road, modify and change it. But it's a positive step, in my opinion, on one issue alone, and that is the removal of A-frames from the arterial roads. And if you just drive north on Darlington, and we all know the areas we're talking about, and that is an eyesore. And if you want to see a bigger eyesore, you turn left on Cave Creek Road, and there is nothing but banners and flags and junk. It's sad. And so I think this is a good step, and I'm going to support
Let
it.
me just clarify the alternatives we have to do. If we do nothing, on January 1st, there are no A-frame signs in town. If we adopt this ordinance, A-frames are permitted, but in effect they're removed off the arterial streets. Or the council in its infinite wisdom could make some modifications to this ordinance if it chooses to do so.
You know, Mayor, I was with Howard Bertram, Bash's Center is already committed to a monument sign. They've already got a design with this ordinance, finally forced them, I think their tenants, Dave Carson was here last month, he's always been concerned about getting a sign. They are now in the process of designing, they have the preliminary design, but they will be putting up a monument sign. So this ordinance has forced them.
This ordinance doesn't exist yet.
Well, but it's in right.
Crane, I believe you wish to speak.
A couple of comments. One, the feeling is if we move forward, we permit the recommended changes to be enacted. The problem, my guess is there will not be a proliferation of signs immediately. And if over time we find that there is, in other words, if our vacancy rate improves, we may have that problem, and that'd be a nice problem to have. And we can go back and we can change the ordinance. At the last meeting, Councilman Farrar brought up a big point, Los Pitalis. Every one of those rentable spaces had a sign, it would be horrific. If you walk in there today, there's very few tenants. Someday there may be, and when that time comes, we have to go back, and we may have to go back and reconsider or manage it differently. But I think, given the circumstances of today, and in just the short-term foreseeable future, we can give our merchants some definition of what they can do, and hopefully they can improve the business environment, and they can do better if they have signs. That's what they wish to have.
On a permanent basis, I find very difficult. The other thing, I'm looking at an article dated November 10th, 2010, from the Sonora News. And it says, sandwich or A-frame signs were the topic of much discussion during last Wednesday's Carefree Council meeting as merchants claimed that $90,000 sundial signs do absolutely nothing to bring people into town. I completely agree with that. Thus, the change with the merchant signs on the meetings. The intent is to drive traffic into town. This is a foot traffic community. I don't see cars driving through the core trying to look where the next sandwich special is with an A-frame sign. And also, I agree with you, Mayor Schwan, regarding your comment where you asked how the town could avoid clutter if everyone puts them out. Councilman, that goes directly to your point, and I'm concerned about that. I don't think it's needed in Carefree in this core, and I don't think it's something we want down the road.
Other questions or comments from the council?
I'd like to, excuse me, if I may just clarify, I was the one last meeting that asked about whether it went through P&Z. I was satisfied with last month's explanation. I'm still satisfied with this month's explanation. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I feel very torn about this also, very torn. I don't know that the A-frames truly really pull more business in. I think about the areas like Los Bertalos or Warren Mall, and those are private sidewalk areas anyway. I mean, if they really wanted to put them out there, I think they're allowed to do that. I'm not sure where you were going with your idea about a moratorium for another year and with some modifications. I would like to see this restricted just to restaurants.
In places where it's very difficult to see that store from the arterial road. In actual fact, I somehow disagree with some of the comments because I think the priority in some instances is to keep A-frames on the arterial road so that those merchants that aren't on the main street are visible because they have a presence on that main street. However, speaking as a merchant, we have our business in the 201 building, and my husband is the landlord for that building. And there are two tenants in our building, one of whom has used an A-frame for probably 16 years or more, on and off, through various art fairs and art shows. And I know that that business relies very heavily on that A-frame being outside. However, just in the last couple of weeks, because of the new ordinance and the new flexibility within the sign permits, that particular merchant, in fact 2 merchants in the building, have approached Howard Bertram and are having blade signs made to take advantage of the flexibility within the new sign permit, because there are other things that the merchants can now do besides having an A-frame outside. And there are 2 merchants that we were very surprised went down that road, but I think it's going to be a wonderful example to other merchants that there are things you can do besides having an A-frame and putting it outside the store. I do have great sympathy and empathy, rather, for merchants that aren't on a main road and it's very difficult to see, particularly somewhere like Carefree Marketplace, where it's much harder to see the business that are inside there. And I know for a fact 1 or 2 businesses that benefit greatly by having their A-frames out on the main road.